This is Alicia Ault with Align Institute, founder of A Millionaire's Journey, also of Level Up Score. I'm excited to be here today to present a live to you. It's something I've been wanting to do and just honestly haven't had time to do it. But some of you who have been following me, I had taken a trip out to Las Vegas to go to acquisition.com. And there were some key things that I learned that I had to pay a lot of money to learn. Some of them were like, aha, like I knew it, but I wasn't doing it type things. And I thought about you guys. I thought, you know what? If that's me and I have, I've built from the ground up several businesses and they've been successful. If I went to Alex Hormozzi's workshop and got an aha moment of things like, oh, maybe I knew that, but I wasn't applying it to my new business or a business in general, I thought, well, then I'm not the only one. So I'm excited to bring this content to you. And it's actually how to fix the one constraint in your business. And I'm going to give you a hint because I'm guessing my audience is people who are following a millionaire's journey. The goal is to be a millionaire. And what that means to me is not that you made $1 million in your lifetime or in several years, but that you made $1 million in a year, right? In one business. And so we're going to talk about that. If you're not there yet, you are my audience. That's who I'm talking to. If you're an entrepreneur and you haven't reached $1 million in 1 year, you're my audience. You're the ones that I'm talking to. I'm going to share a PowerPoint slide with you because I think it holds your attention better than just seeing me talk on the screen. And it keeps me also on consistent with my messaging. So give me just 1 second as I share that. I appreciate you all for being here. I am streaming this live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So hopefully those of you might be on that, you will see me there. Bear with me just a moment as I share my screen here, bring up my PowerPoint. Okay. There we go. Now it's coming up. A few million clicks and then we'll have a PowerPoint slide ready to present. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so the screen you should see, it says, what I learned at acquisition.com, how to fix your number one constraint and build $1 million machine. Again, my audience, I'm talking to you that are entrepreneurs, excited about a business. Maybe you're getting started with one. You haven't made $1 million in a year. So maybe you made $1 million in your lifetime. Maybe you made it over a couple of months in your business. Maybe you did it in a couple of years in your business, but not, in a couple of years, but not in a year. So welcome to A Millionaire's Journey. All right, so the purpose of this live is I wanted to show you exactly what I learned at the Alex Hormozzi's workshop and how it shifted everything in my business in just one conversation. So what you're going to receive in this is a breakdown of some of those core lessons that I learned, how to apply them, because I'm all about teaching and giving you exactly what you need so you can apply it. Marvin, thank you for being here. A mini scorecard that you can look off of to kind of check yourself and rate yourself in different areas. Action steps you can implement today. I find that very important. And my goal is that you walk away knowing the one thing you must fix next. Okay. All right. So that's my promise to you today. And I'm looking to deliver on that promise. Okay. So the number one constraint, the biggest lesson that I learned was the number one constraint. And for all of us, again, my audience, the number one constraint is revenue. It's absolutely 100% revenue. Every business has one constraint at one time. You can only work on one thing at a time until it's solved. Most people expand too fast and dilute their power. You know, what I find so often is that people will think that they have a lot of different things that we have to do in our business, which we do. We're loaded with things. If you're starting a business, you kind of almost get confused and it gets chaotic in your brain of all the different things we have to do. But the core foundation, it's one thing that we really need to be focusing our attention on. And until we solve that one constraint, we really can't move to the next constraint. Okay. And so I'm not going to dive into all the different constraints that I learned from the Alex Hormozzi workshop today because my audience has got to focus on the one constraint. So we're just going to focus our attention on that, not dilute the message. So the one constraint for all of us that are listening to this is revenue. So the idea is we have to solve for that. So what is revenue solved? It's doing business of at least $1 million per year. And until then, that's the only constraint worth solving is revenue. Okay. The only constraint we're solving. So if what you're doing throughout your day, if you kind of think with this on a brain cap, put your little brain cap on and think, okay, whatever I do all day long in my business should solve for this one thing. If it doesn't solve for this one thing, I am solving the wrong things right now. But the one beautiful thing about solving for the right thing is once you have enough revenue, let's say $1 million, now you can solve the next constraint. You have funds to do that, right? You have funds to have a team and all this other stuff that comes along with having a business. But I want to tell you a personal story because I like to be transparent and open about my journeys because I am absolutely 100% not perfect. I am not perfect at all, and I'm okay with that. And I love learning. And this was an opportunity for me to go to Alex's office and get that team to mentor me, which is a fabulous time. But I will say that I was there. I didn't get some revelational things that I was like, oh, this is like, I've never heard this before. It wasn't really that. It was like, hey, you know all these things and you know how to run a business and you have created businesses from the bottom up and you've succeeded in those. But did you know that you could have done better and faster had you spent all your time and energy with the one constraint that mattered most, and that was revenue. So with the new business that I have, I was trying to do all things. So my story goes like this. Up until the time that I went to Alex Hormozzi's team, I thought my biggest constraint was myself. I was the bottleneck in my business. And I know a lot of you have heard that. You're the bottleneck in your business. You're the bottleneck in your business. You shouldn't be working in your business. You should be working on your business. Yes, true, but not in the beginning, not until you have solved the revenue problem. So, what I mean by that is when I was doing things with this new business, I was thinking, I need to remove myself. I'll hire this person to do this and I'll hire this person to do that. And it's okay for those little tiny things, but I wanted to take myself out of it entirely because I knew one of my constraints was that I was the key man person. So if you understand what key man person means, it just means that if something were to happen to me, my business would falter because everything relies on me to do everything. It's my face, it's everything. My business is all about me. So I have a key man problem. So I was trying to solve for that. And that's actually way down the line of constraints that are important to solve for, as funny as that might make sound. Okay. Because if you think about it, and I won't get into all of them, but if I made $1 million in a year, and that's one of my constraints, and let's say I got sick and stuff started suffering, I could take that $1 million, invest it, right? And I can start something new later. I could take that $1 million and help myself get well, and then start something new. So I'm not going to go into all the different ideas, but you get the point. If I have the revenue, then it can solve for other problems, right? So key thing here is revenue is the constraint you need to be solving right now. So until the constraint is fixed, nothing else matters. So your branding doesn't matter. You're not your team, not your systems, not your automations. Nothing really matters until that is fixed, unless those things help you get to this. Okay, does that make sense? For most of us, revenue means that we need to be focusing on getting in more leads, converting those leads to paid clients, right? That might be our primary focus, which I'll be talking about here in this to help give you some ideas of how you can do that. But again, your number one constraint should be that you should be solving for is revenue. All right. Scorecarding your business. I'm going to give you this 5-part scorecard. You might want to write these words down on a piece of paper. So we have offer. This what is your niche? Do you have a niche? Is it clear? Does it solve a burning pain? Okay. So if we're going to solve a revenue problem, one of the things that we need to make sure we have is an offer. The offer should be niched. It should be clear. It should solve a burning problem. And when I say solves a burning problem, it's just not an idea that you think, oh, this idea is going to solve a burning problem. What you're selling should solve the burning problem. So if I'm selling a toaster, it should toast the toast, right? So thinking about that, you should be delivering on your promise. Otherwise, you might need to go back to the offer and figure out what that offer should be, go back to the niche, figure out if that is what you need to be working on. Is it clear, right? So number one, offer. Number two on your scorecard, and you can score yourself 1 to 10 to give yourself an idea of how good you are on these levels because they're really important. Lead flow. Are you getting enough attention? Okay. If you're not getting enough attention, let's say you have the offers great, the attention's not there. This is all a scorecard in solving the revenue, guys. That's your constraint. Lead flow is not good. Okay, I'm not, I didn't rate myself great on that. That's where I'm going to be solving for. Alex Hormozi says that if you know how to get leads, you'll never have to worry about money again. You can work in any business and do anything if you are a pro at getting leads. Okay. And then we have conversion. So just to give you an idea of my own business when I went into Alex Hormozi's, if I scored myself on the scorecard, I had offer that my offer was very solid. My lead flow was very solid. My conversion was not solid. I was not closing at the level that I required of myself or the level that the business required of me. So conversions was something that I had to really focus on. I'm gonna give you guys some tips on how to improve your conversion today. Delivery, that one I did have. I rated myself very high on that. Are results consistent and impressive? Am I delivering on what I promised my people? Yes, I was. That was good. Retention and loan to value. Are people staying and buying more? That was a yes for me, but I didn't rate real high because I also had people on my platform who bought one time and didn't buy again, right? And so I was able to go through this scorecard and rate myself. These are all revenue things to do, okay? Not me trying to find someone to do my sales calls. That wasn't the appropriate place for me to work on. My appropriate place was to figure out what the sales calls should be, right? What is that? So how do I convert? And then I can hire someone to help me with sales calls, but not until I know how to do it, right? And I know what's going to happen. So this is your scorecard. So write that down. Offer, lead flow, conversion, delivery, retention, or lifetime value of your clients. So let me go to my next slide here. Well, let me talk to you about why this really matters. So your scorecard reveals the bottleneck that's actually costing you money or keeping you from getting the revenue that you need. You don't know your constraint until you end up fixing everything that matters, right? So we got to figure out what actually matters. And again, I've already given you a clue, it's revenue, right? So how do we fix that? We have to then see if revenue is the issue, what are the things that create revenue? And how am I scoring myself on this? And I need to fix these things. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Um, Sales, the real skill you must master. You must be a master at great sales. You also must be a master at great leads. So leads first, sales second. But I want to dive into sales because this was a problem that I really had. And I think a lot of people have this problem, and some people think that they don't because their numbers are big. But if they were to look at their actual conversion rate, it's probably not. They just got a lot of leads. So you must be the one who perfects the pitch, okay, builds a script, deconstructs objections, creates a repeatable process. You must be the one for this because if you try to go hire a great salesperson, you're either going to pay a lot of money for that person to figure out how best to sell your process, which means you're paying them to figure it out, or you're going to have a lot of people who don't know how to do it and you don't know how to do it. So then your sales don't work, but you're paying someone for that. So it's really important in the first part of the process is that you become the first great salesperson in your organization. You're going to figure out what the pitch is. And I'm going to give you some really quick things that Alex Hormozi's team taught me that helped me tremendously. And I mean, when I say tremendously, I mean, it was night and day what I was doing as a professional salesperson in my organization before going to Alex Hormozi's event. So, sometimes when you pay big money for a coach, you want to see the results of that pretty fast. And I can say that when I went there, that's exactly what I got. So we'll talk about that. But some common mistakes that entrepreneurs make is they hire salespeople before having a winning conversion process. Then they pay someone to figure it out with them, which bleeds revenue in multiple different ways. Now you're pulled away from other ways of building revenue because you're trying to figure that out with them and you're paying them at the same time. So it can be a big mistake. Unless you have an A-rated person and you want to hire them right off the gate. But again, you're going to pay a bigger price for that. I do highly recommend that you figure out your winning conversion process first. This will save you money. And so you can put more of that money into your revenue, right, that you're bringing in. Okay. All right. So Some things that you need to be thinking about in terms of this. Actually, let me see if I want to go to that yet. Actually, I want to go back. I'm going to go back. I wanted to make sure that I go over something here. When we talk about common mistakes that entrepreneurs make, obviously hiring salespeople before they have a winning conversion. So let me give you some ideas of things that you can do that'll help you create a winning conversion. And I am going to suggest three main things. Recording every single call that you have. Now, in my practice, we do a lot of Zooms. So I'm able to, I record the Zooms, I take the transcript, and I'm going to throw it in Chat GPT. You can do the same thing with your recorded phone calls. You're going to throw them in Chat GPT, and you're going to ask Chat GPT, like, I need to improve my conversions. How do I do that? And I always say, based on how, Alex Hormozy style, right? And it will actually let you know, and I'll ask it to critique me. It'll let me know what I was really good at in terms of my sales calls and what I wasn't, and giving me suggestions on how to improve that. It is amazing what you can get from ChatGPT. And that's what Alex Hormozy's team recommended that I do. I did that and I was floored. So the first time I used that knowledge that I got from ChatGPT, I ran a couple of my sales calls in it. It gave me some really great pointers. I did that on my next sales call and I sold everyone on the call. Okay. And then I took that and I put it in ChatGPT and I said, hey, critique me again, refine this. How can I make it better? And I ended up with a PowerPoint slide for my presentation that I never had done before. I had always done a call where I'm just showing my screen and this and that. And it actually said, no, you need to create a PowerPoint slide and this is what it needs to do and all this. And so it keeps refining and making my process better and better. And now I'm at a point where I have a converting process that I can now put on someone's desk. And this is what Alex Hormozy's team said. When you have a converting process, all you need to do is hire someone who can memorize it. Right. And so now you're not having to hire someone and wonder whether or not they're going to be good at sales. You know the process works. So they need to be able to memorize it, kind of put it in their own tone, obviously make it authentic for them. But that's how you can do that very easily. So Chat GPT literally is an unlimited sales trainer, and most people were not using it. And I've had the most fun since they brought that up to me of doing that. Um, is anybody like think about this for a second? Have you ever used that option to where you take your sales call and you throw it in ChatGPT? I'm going to guess that most of us are going to say that no. And I highly recommend that you start doing that right away. If you haven't been recording phone calls or Zooms, if your phone system doesn't record your calls automatically, you can, set, if you're on a phone call, you can set your cell phone off to the side and record that and then upload that into ChatGPT, or sometimes you have to upload it into a transcriber. Or if you're on a phone call, I like to have Zoom running in the background, recording that conversation. I'll have it on speaker and let Zoom record that conversation. I have done it too, where I had ChatGPT listen to that conversation because you know how it has the voice to text. That becomes iffy sometimes because sometimes it'll say, oh, it didn't catch all that. The internet was down or something crazy. And so then I missed all that. So I've been more opt to recording it and then putting in ChatGPT. So you do you, but I highly recommend that you do it regardless. If you think it makes sense to you and if you're not already doing it, just see how that works for you in terms of your sales calls. Okay. Now, creating content from everything you do, okay? And this goes into, again, into the revenue thing. And the reason I put this in here is because this is something Alex Hormozy really talked a lot about. If you've read any of his books, he also talks about it in one of his books. I can't remember which one it is, but he talks about how he was making a lot of money, but he saw other people like going way beyond him. And he was trying to figure out what was it different about what they were doing versus what he was doing. And the underlying thing that he found was they were not capturing everything for content or he wasn't, and they were. So they were on social media and they were doing things. And he thought, man. So he sat back and thought, you need to be capturing everything. So he said he'll be sitting in a meeting and he'll like stop the meeting, hey, take a pause, that he could take notes on something that he learned from that meeting that would be good for social media content, right? So every activity can become content that compounds. So we can have lives and shorts, Zoom calls, courses, worksheets, lead magnets, write notes, PDFs, all this stuff. And you can use this and start building off of it. I always say, think about the future ahead whenever you're creating something. So for instance, I talk about to my Millionaire's Journey group about this all the time. But if I'm going to make an article, think book later, right? If I'm making an article, maybe think course later, right? Think lead magnet, think workbook, think PDF guide, right? Think training material, think a product. Always thinking ahead, like what could this actually end up being later if I compounded on it, right? And then using that information to put it on your social media. Like let people follow your journey, let people see what you're doing, and you can create content all day long by just little things that you're learning all day long. So take this demo or this call right now that we're having. You might say on your social media, one thing I learned today, number one constraint, unless you're making over $1 million every year in revenue, your number one constraint is revenue. Solve for that first and you'll succeed, right? I mean, you could do something short and sweet like that. So thinking all day long about the experiences you're having and how you can capture them to make content. So I think that's a really important piece that I it was a big takeaway for me. I was already doing content and I just started. I'm new to content as of, I think I started content in April, end of April of this year. And I've grown a lot since then, but learning and learning and learning more and more. But one of the things that has helped me is the idea of capturing everything, making it content, making information and materials out of that. So, um, you know, this week, I'll give you an example. What is it? Last week, I think it was, I did a teaching on monetizing 100% of your leads, right? How to do that. So I've taken that. I have a workbook for that. I have a guide for that, right? I have the recorded class, and now I can monetize on that. I can now offer that as a class that you can buy, a recorded class that you could buy, right? I can take that and build that into an actual course that someone can take. So I hope you get the point of what I'm saying. And I think it was Shonda Martin, right? I don't know if many of you know her, but I think the product she had created, it's like if I remember right, it's just like a PDF guide on credit. And if I remember her story right, she was charging like $19.95 for that. And that was years ago. And still to this day, she has that product offered out there and she's making, and I won't give her numbers, but she's making more money than I'm making off of this one product that's out there on the market. So just think about that as you're starting to build stuff that you don't know what might be the thing that really starts to make you money over time. We don't create content, we repurpose our work into assets. That's the way you can think of it. Like your work can become an asset, everything that you're doing, everything you learn, if you're reading a book, everything. Like just think of that all the time. Okay, next one I want to talk about is value stacking and pricing. So that was one of the key lessons that I learned, and this helped me in the revenue, right? So if I have a good product, that's the most important product or service. It has to be good. It has to deliver on its promise. Number one, if we don't have that, we shouldn't even be talking right now. So that's number one. We have it niche, right? It's clear. We can promise the goal. So how do we increase revenue by value stacking? I've talked about this a lot. So value stacking is this idea that you have this product or service, and what are the other things that the consumer can get by taking advantage of your product or service? And so the way that Alex Hormozy talked about it is your value stack should be helping someone, it should alleviate their objections or their fears. So when we go back to becoming a really good salesperson, right, all those no's that we get are learning opportunities that we write down. Why did that person say no, right? And if you're doing what I suggested, where you're throwing that conversation into ChatGPT, you can say, hey, ChatGPT, what were the objections of this call? And how can I solve for them? I've done that. That's gives me some really amazing results. And now it just tells me every call that I put in there. Here are the objections you got. Here's the fear that they have. Here's how you overcome that. And the idea is that you are building this list of what are the objections and fears that people have because you want to solve for them in your value stack. Okay. It doesn't mean you're making a bunch of stuff and you're listing all these different things that you offer, but your offer, your core offer should be helping them through any of the fears and objections, right? And it might be that you make something. So I've given a lot of classes on this, so I won't go into it right now, but a value stack might be, I help first-time home buyers get mortgage ready in 3 months. And one of their fears might be, well, not me. I've tried this stuff before and it doesn't work for me. And then you could have something like, you know, the first 5 actions to take to rapid improvement, right? You can have a guide that comes with your overall product and service, a mortgage lender's review and checklist, right? So different things like that to help to alleviate those fears. And then thinking about pricing, we want to look at our pricing in a way that I thought was really unique. And I actually increased my pricing on my coaching services 3 times now since I've been back from Alex Hormozzi's event, which was just in November, the first week of November. He said if you have a price for your product and it's easy for people to buy, 5 people to buy, meaning that I put the price out there, 5 people bought real fast. Then he said, if it's easy, make it hard. If it's hard, make it easy. So if it's so easy for 5 people real fast to pay my at the time it was $199 for an hour of coaching with me, then I need to increase my price. So I increased it to, and he says like by 10%, 20%, not huge increases. But I realized that I was way underpriced at $199. So I jumped my price to $299. Same thing happened right away. 5 people bought at $299. So then I was like, okay, I'm gonna increase again. And I got to $399. Same thing happened. I got 5 people to buy right again. Now I haven't increased it from the $399, so I am still $399 an hour. But you get my point is that when it's easy, make it harder. And then you're gonna find that perfect price for what you do. Because if it gets hard, then you know that, maybe it's the perfect price or you need to ease off of it a little bit and give a little bit more, either more value or discount on that pricing, trying to adjust that. So it's a great way to figure out your pricing. So I've had a lot of people are like, oh, I got 200 clients and I charge this amount and I just get clients constantly. Well, you're easy, right? And you need to make it harder. So $99 should now be, maybe it's 119, right? So thinking about that, that's going to help the revenue problem. Again, we're talking about revenue. And then scarcity. So the idea that we offer this, maybe we have something that we offer to only 100 people, right? So the idea of helping create some urgency and scarcity to your process. And this is really important if you're trying to get people onto your thing really fast, right? You want to create some urgency, because if it's unlimited and I can get on your program anytime, then maybe they don't get on it because they're like, anytime I can do this, and they keep putting it off. But if you create some urgency or some scarcity behind that, you're going to get more people to sign up for your services faster. So increase prices to match value. Most entrepreneurs undercharge. So again, look at that. Price follows perceived certainty. That's another reason why you don't want to undercharge. If you undercharge, like I was at $199 an hour for coaching, it's probably going to look like, was she a really good coach? I thought about when I went to Bet David's convention, he was charging, I believe it was $500 to send him a text message. I want you to think about that for a second. $500 to send him a text message. Well, I don't know where he came up with that price, but the perceived certainty that that price was good, that he was a professional that I wanted to talk to, just became known if anyone's willing to pay $500 to text message him, right? So when your offer is strong and your value stack is clear, raising prices becomes easy. So that's the other part. And you'll know, because the 5-person rule that Alex Hormozzi, I just explained for Alex Hormozzi, 5 people, easy, make it a little harder. And that's how you can start to raise your prices. Okay. All right, build your value stack using objections. I talked about this a little bit. I'm going to dive into it just a little bit more. So ask, what would stop someone from buying your service or product? What fears or doubts would they have? What obstacles would hold them back? Then turn each answer into a bonus for your value stack, okay? Or part of your core offer. Very, very important part. This might be the part that takes you the longest to figure out, because you're going to have to like sit there and brainstorm, okay, what are all the ways that someone might be stopped from buying from me? What are all the fears and doubts that they might have? What are all the obstacles that might be holding them back, right? You've heard the one, I'm sure, well, I need to ask my wife about this, right? And so thinking about that and writing those all down and having something already built out in your value stack that helps them overcome those. Super, super important. And Alex Hormozzi said, a matter of fact, that you need to find all the objections and all the fears, and you have to solve for in your product. You have to solve for all of them. Now that takes a little brain work, but in his experience, he said once you do it one time, you don't have to do it again, right? In most cases. But this is where if you are having those conversations, you're the key salesperson because you're trying to perfect the conversion rates, right? You're trying to perfect the sales call. It makes it easier because you're going to be the one hearing the objections. You're going to be the one hearing the fears. You're going to be hearing what's stopping them from buying from you, and you're going to take note of that. Or you're recording those calls. You're going to throw them in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to find these things. And then you can also ask ChatGPT to help you solve each one, right? With a bonus. So really think about that because I think a lot of us miss that piece. And we always talk about, so often you hear people say, well, every no is a learning experience. Okay, yeah, it's a lesson. It's something we can learn off of. But how many of us actually take that and make it a learning experience, right? We say we do, but we're just putting it in our brain. We're not sitting there and actually creating a solution for it. And that's what I'm proposing here. Okay, so the Hermosi value stack formula in your core offer, it could be tools, templates, trainings, scripts, checklists, bonuses, guarantees, scarcity. And so he really likes the guarantee. So if you can guarantee results for the consumer, if you follow all of this, I guarantee you'll get the results and you get your money back if you don't. Some of those can be very helpful, but make sure that you put it in such a way that they're not getting this guarantee and they didn't do any work that need to be done in order to get to the goal, right? And so I signed up for a YouTube expert to help me with YouTube, and they gave me a nice guarantee. If you do, and they gave me a checklist, all these things, and you don't make $20,000 a month in the next 6 months, then you get all your money back that you paid us, right? It was a great guarantee, but there was a lot of things that I had was required of me. And why were they required of me? Because they knew that if I did those things, I would definitely make $20,000 a month. They knew that. And so if you know that you're going to deliver on your promise and you know the steps they need to take for you to deliver on their promise, then it's easy to make a guarantee and make them accountable for their actions. And the beautiful thing about that is then they become success stories for you, which helps you make more and more money because now if they're a success story, guess what? They're going to go tell everybody about you because they got success. But those same people who don't go through your process, even though you know and you can guarantee that you start here and you're going to get here because you know you're delivering on your promise, if they don't do the things and you're not clear about, hey, these things need to be done in order to get this guarantee and get to this promise, and they don't know that and they don't do the things, they're going to blame you later because it was your process that didn't get them there. Your program doesn't work. When indeed it does work, you just weren't clear of what was required of them in that guarantee. So that's another reason guarantees are really cool to have, because it really puts that onus on the consumer about what they have to do. Okay, now I want to go through what I call fixing your time audit because I think it's important in this segment. When we talk about revenue, and I say, hey, if your number one constraint is revenue, you need to be spending your day doing revenue building activities. It might be good for you to start by actually doing a time audit. And so that this is one of the things that Alex Ramosi suggested. So it's about a 15-minute time audit. So what you do is all day long for a week, you're going to set your timer at 15-minute time sets. Okay. And every 15 minutes, you're going to write down what you did in that 15 minutes. Then you're going to reset your clock for another 15 minutes. You're going to continue that all day long. The idea is you're going to come to find out what you're actually doing in your day. And trust me, I did the time audit, and there was days that I was like, I can't even do it because I'm all off. Like this time audit, it's gonna look like I didn't do nothing all day because I didn't, right? Because my ADHD chimed in. But time audits are really great because then if you're saying, hey, I'm spending all my time on revenue activities, and then you put that your activities into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is like, yeah, 80% of the time you're on Facebook. Mine wasn't that bad, but one of the things I did see is I was checking my social medias because I am looking to grow my social media. I was checking things constantly, and I'm not the one to check them. I already hired someone who checks that stuff, right? And so that wasn't a revenue building activity. So as much as I could say that that's what I was doing all day, I wasn't, right? And so one way that you could do it that I recommend is actually having Zoom on in the background, sharing your screen, and you go through all of it and you're talking out loud. Your calls are out loud. Then you take that and you throw that in ChatGPT and let it create your time audit for you. That's just the easy way to do it without you writing down everything. But if revenue is the constraint, your time must be spent only on revenue driving activities. Okay. The audit reveals tasks you shouldn't be doing, tasks you can delegate, tasks you must eliminate, and tasks that directly affect revenue. And so if you're doing it, like I said, with Zoom and you throw that in ChatGPT, it's a great way to say, hey, ChatGPT, what things should I not be doing? What things could I delegate easily? What things must I eliminate from, my process? So maybe it's in your process. There's some things you just shouldn't be doing. I'll give you an example of this. I had a lady that I was coaching and she's like, hey, Allie, can you check out my website and tell me what you think? And so I went on her website and I'm like, oh, man, your website's absolutely beautiful, but you have like 12 different offers on your website. And I've been in the credit space for a long time. And even I wouldn't know which offer I should choose for my situation. Like it was so overwhelming. And I said, this is the reason that you're having problems with getting leads to convert. They're going to your website and they're like, I don't even know what to pick. Right. And so looking at things like that, even in your systems and processes, like what can I eliminate there? Um, if you have multiple offers, Alex Ramosi will tell you have one. Because if you haven't made $1 million yet and you want to be offering 3 different things, 4 different things, 5 different things, how are you optimizing any of them to make $1 million? You should have one offer. And I don't know how many people that he went up and he's talking to, and he would say, well, what are you selling? And they would say, well, this. And he would go, well, you're selling 5 things too many. Pick one. You're selling 5. This lady had 12 different things on her website she was selling, right? And she couldn't hit 1 million. So what a lot of us do is we're like, okay, I can't hit 1 million on one of my offers, so I'll add another offer and I'll keep adding offers, and someone's going to buy something on these, and then eventually I'll hit 1 million. That's actually not how it works. It's not, because now you're spending your time on all these different things when you can spend your time all on one thing. So if that was one of my suggestions to you today, is look at what you're doing. If you've got a bunch of offers, drop it down to one, go all in on that one. Go on the one that you believe in the most. Go on the one that's the most valuable for the consumer. It's going to get them to whatever goal they're trying to do, and go all in on it. And then look at ways that you can delegate. So for me, I delegate the phone calls. When the phones ring, I don't want to do that, right? Delegate the things that you can, that are easy for you to delegate. That doesn't take a lot of training or anything on your part with somebody else. Those are really good ways to do it. And then what you simply shouldn't be doing. Like for me, it was checking Facebook or any of the social medias for that matter. I didn't need to be doing it. I shouldn't have been doing it, because then it was a trap. I'd get in there and then start looking at things, right? And so thinking about that. And then also, what tasks directly affect your revenue? Like, okay, if they do, I need to do more of those things, right? I need to do more of the things that are helping my revenue. And for me, I need to spend time on understanding how to get more leads. That was my one area that was great. But hey, if I can be a pro at getting leads, then I could be anywhere, right? So that spending time on that was really important to me. So that was what I did in the mornings. And in the afternoons, I spent all of my day the week after I came back from Alex Ramosi's on how to convert. So uploading that. And that's all I did. I spent all day long on how can I convert the people that I was on calls with. So thinking about that again, that scorecard's a really great way to identify what those things are. So I'm going to do a quick wrap up for you. Your one thing, that's your homework, your one thing. Identify your number one constraint. It's probably revenue. If you're my audience, it is definitely revenue. Build your scorecard, rank yourself, decide what things you need to be working on this week. Audit your time for the next 7 days, 15-minute increments, audit your time. Record all of your sales calls. And you're going to feed those calls into ChatGPT. And you might have, where you're recording sales calls, and then you have another one ChatGPT set up for recording customer service calls, right? Different things like that. Those are all affecting your revenue, but definitely your sales calls, right? Those need to be recorded, put in ChatGPT and analyzed for improvement. And then the idea would be to build out a really nice converting sales call, right? Build or improve your sales stack, and turn one piece of content this week into at least 2 assets. So thinking about everything in your day, like I said before, you're on this call with me, you're listening to this, maybe you're listening to it tomorrow, whatever it might be, and you got the idea of the one constraint. Put that on social media. There's one of your contents for the week. Put it on social media and say, one thing I learned today that was very insightful for me that's going to help me with my business, the number one thing, revenue, right? And then get people's attention and start, call to action, like, is this a problem that you think you have you considered this, that kind of thing? Okay. um I said turn it into 2 assets. My bottom's not showing here. It's 3 assets this week. Okay. A millionaire's journey is about fixing one thing at a time with intensity and clarity. When you fix the right constraint, everything else falls into place. I can promise you that. So if today shifted something for you, please let me know. And I want to know if you would like me to do more of these live events. I don't usually do these on a millionaire's journey, but it's something that I've been considering doing as I continue to learn on my learning journey of being a millionaire and how to make it easier and faster for you as a professional. So if these are something you're interested in, please maybe put a fire emoji in the comments, send me a DM, and I'll continue to do these. I actually will be going back to Alex Ramosie's team in February, and I'll spend the entire day there just learning about my business and how I can do it better. And I'd like to bring that information back to you guys if that's something you'd like to hear. I appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing day. Happy Monday. We're in the beginning of a week. Make this week solid. Like, do your time audit. Look at what you're doing. Are you spending most of your time on revenue or all of your time on revenue building activities? And if not, how can you change that? I appreciate you. Have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you soon.